Turn with me real quick word today. Hopefully it'll be a quick word. The book of Judges, chapter 6, verses 11 through 14. And I don't know if you guys remember, I believe it was Mother's Day, and I preached a message called Grab the Glory, Sis. And JL grabbed the glory. She was a bit anonymous until that moment. But after she grabbed the glory, we talked about in Judges that there was no king in the land and that the people did whatever was good in their own eyes. So after JL grabbed the glory and they put out a song on JL and she was in the top 40, Israel fell back into its old ways. We always fall back, so I don't know why we can't stay out of stuff. I don't get it. Israel fell back into its old ways. We pick up in Judges chapter 6, verses 11 through 14. It says, "Now the angel of the Lord came and sat under the terebinth tree, which was at Ophrah, which belonged to Joash the Abiezrite, while his son Gideon threshed wheat in the winepress in order to hide it from the Midianites. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said to him, 'The Lord is with you, you mighty man of valor.' Gideon said to him, 'O my Lord, if the Lord is with us, why then has all this happened to us? And where are all his miracles which our fathers told us about, saying, did not the Lord bring us up from Egypt? But now the Lord has forsaken us and delivered us into the hands of the Midianites.' Then the Lord turned to him and said, 'Go in this might of yours, and you shall save Israel from the hand of the Midianites. Have I not sent you?'" Have you ever been in a situation where you felt someone was barging in on you and intruding, and maybe you gave them a look like, "I know you didn't," and the person responded and said, "Did I catch you at a bad time?" For a few short moments, I want to speak from the subject of, did I catch you at a bad time? Did I catch you at a bad time? When we talk about Gideon, one of the things we automatically focus on, for the most part, is we talk about how God approached him while he was in a wine press threshing wheat. And then somehow we work our way to the small 300-man army he had when God gave him the victory. And in between God calling him and giving him the victory, every now and then we may touch on how Gideon tested God. And you know, when Gideon responded to God's call, he grabbed a fleece and said, "Lord, if it's you, I'm going to put this fleece on the ground, allow dew to fall and touch every area except the fleece." And God did it. And then Gideon was like, okay, I'm going to take this same fleece, I'm going to lay it on the ground, and Lord, this time allow dew to fall on the fleece and let everything around it remain dry. and God did it. And so we focus a lot on the high points of what God did when he called Gideon. But I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, that after Gideon was done with his little fleece test, God looked at Gideon and said, okay, your turn. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, do we think that we're going to get away with putting God through a battery of testing and he not turn around and put us through a battery of testing or test us at least once? We want God to prove himself to us all the time. Bring that mic down some. We want God to prove himself to us all the time and in so many different ways, but we don't understand that sometimes God's going to say, okay, I'm through proving myself to you. I know what's in you. I know what I put there. I know what I want to do with you. It's your turn to show me that you're willing to do what it is that I've called you to do. Oh my God. And when God puts you through his test, is not going to be at the most convenient time. And may I tell you, it's probably not going to be the most convenient thing. Look at somebody and say, did I catch you at a bad time? God will look at you and say, did I catch you at a bad time? Because I'm ready to do something in you. And if you ain't ready, you're going to miss it. If you're not ready, it's going to blow by you. If you're not ready and you're so focused on this being an inconvenience time, you're going to miss on what I'm going to do in you. God will look at you and say, did I catch you at a bad time? And when God caught Gideon, it wasn't at the most ideal time. It was at a time where Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord. And because of this, the Lord turned them over to the Midianites and their company. And now what I find interesting here is, watch this, is when God turned Israel over to the Midianites, when God turned Israel over to its enemies, Israel went into self-deprecating behavior on their own. Watch this. Scripture says, because of the Midianites, the children of Israel made for themselves dens, caves, and strongholds which are in the mountains. Catch this, ladies and gentlemen. In other words, because of their enemies, rather than face their enemies, rather than defend themselves against their enemies, rather than fight their enemies, they chose a life of isolation away from their enemies. Because of their enemies, they chose a monastic lifestyle where they'd rather remain hidden than fight. They'd rather be left alone than face their troubles. Y'all ain't hearing me today. They'd rather stay away than deal with the things that call them into accountability. Okay. Y'all missing it. God says, okay, you don't want to obey me, so I'm going to bring enemies into your life and allow your enemies to terrorize you. But God didn't allow the enemy to terrorize them for them to go into hiding. He allowed the enemy to terrorize them, to force them to the point where they need to learn how to fight, to force them to the point where they're going to learn how to lean on him and depend on him. But instead of leaning on God and instead of doing what God called them to do, instead of being accountable, they went into hiding. And I said to myself, I said, Lord, is it me or is it you? What are you saying to me and showing me in this text? Because I thought that the purpose of this anonymity series was for us to remain hidden until our time was right. He was like, yeah, you right, that is it, but I need you to understand something. The problem with anonymity is, ladies and gentlemen, catch this, I get to choose your anonymity, you don't. I get to choose your anonymity. You don't. You don't get to choose your anonymous position yourself. That's what I do. And I wonder how many of us are somewhere hiding and calling it anonymity when in fact it's a lack of accountability to God. It is. Some of us are hiding from responsibility. Some of us are hiding from accountability. And some of us are hiding from authority. And we're giving it a spiritual connotation to make it not sound as bad as it really is. You know, I'm on sabbatical. You know, I'm seeking the Lord in this season. I ain't being too hasty in this season. You know how it is. I'm just on a reprieve right now. You know, I'm on a leave of absence. And the truth of the matter is, the reason why we're hiding is we're being disobedient and would rather remain in isolation than obey God. I've been there before. I ain't gonna bother y'all too bad. I told my story last week. I was in disobedience because I didn't want to be accountable to the things that God had called me to do. And we all go through this. We all face this in some way or another. And I'm so glad that I don't get to choose my hiding place. He chooses my hiding place. He chooses how to hide me. Oh my God. He chooses how to cover me. He chooses how to position me. I don't get to choose where I hide. He says, that's my job, not yours. And it's my job to bring you out. But as long as you're in a place and hiding in something that I didn't call you to, you're going to have problems. Woo. However, watch this. There's times where you got to find humor in the Bible. God has a sense of humor, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. Watch this. Israel is hiding, but the Midianites know where they are. And comes to them every harvest season, not to steal, not to plunder. Watch this. To trample on their crops. They don't come to steal from them. They don't come to plunder. They mount up and they come in these droves like locusts just to trample through their stuff. Here it is. There are two things we need to get from this. The first is, how are you hiding from someone who knew where you were to begin with? Sometimes we think we getting away with stuff. Sometimes we think we getting by with stuff. Sometimes we think we're doing something when in fact we ain't doing nothing. Sometimes we go through unnecessary stuff trying to protect our disobedience. We go through the same routine year in, year out. We fall for the same scheme year in, year out, and we think we're getting away with something, but our past keeps finding us. Here it is. We thought we were untraceable, but just can't seem to shake the same stuff, the same attacks, the same type of people, the same enemies. You ever notice, my God, that sometimes the same type of people find you on the job? You ever notice that sometimes the same type of situations seem to reoccur in your life or reoccur in other people's lives? It's because they haven't really changed the thing that's causing the same thing to reoccur over and over. And you would have thought that by now, after a few harvest seasons, that Israel would at least change locations. But they hadn't. Watch this. You want to know what really trips me out? Israel's enemies didn't take their crops They just destroyed them. And can I tell you something, still be your friend? Some people don't want what you have. They just don't like you having it. Some people don't want what you have. They just don't like that you're the one with it. They don't like you the one with that car. They don't like that you're the one with that spouse. They don't like that you the one got the position. They don't like that you're the one with the pro. They don't want the responsibility of having what you have. No way. They just don't like you having it. These people attack Israel. Watch this. And these attacks led Israel into abject poverty. Notice the attacks weren't directly aimed at Israel physically. The enemies weren't taking up arms to fight Israel. They only attacked their crops. And I asked God something. I said, Lord, help me understand. What was the purpose of just attacking their crops? Do you care to know what the Lord told me? He said, it's because they were producing in a place that I didn't call them to. Okay. It's because they were producing in a place I didn't call them to. And whatever you produce in disobedience won't last. And there's a lot of people who are producing all kinds of stuff, and it seems like it's working. It seems like it's the appropriate thing. It seems like it's the right thing. But all of a sudden, it always seems like the situation falters. It always seems like the situation crumbles. It always seems like the rug is being snatched from underneath them. And the reason why is it's because you are producing something in a place of disobedience, and if God didn't call you to it, he don't have to sustain it. Oh, help me up in here. I should have forgot my belt this morning. They producing in a place that God didn't call them to. And whatever you produce in disobedience won't last. Israel was producing, but out of the will of God. They were creating, but out of the will of God. They were reaping, but out of the will of God. And can I tell you something and still be your friend? Just because you're producing, just because you're creating, just because you're reaping, don't mean you pleasing God. And because they were doing this in a place God didn't call them to, they couldn't enjoy the fruit of what they were doing. So in order to stir them towards their freedom, he created uncomfortability in their anonymity. He created an uncomfortable situation while they were trying to remain anonymous. And that's what's wrong with a lot of us. A lot of us are uncomfortable right now. Why? Because God is agitating some things around us to get us to come out of our cave. He's agitating some things around us to get us out of them strongholds. He's agitating some things around us to get us out of the cliffs and to get us in the place that he's called us to be. And as long as he has to stir us, and as long as he has to shift us, as long as he has to move us, oh, he gonna do whatever he got to do to get you to come out of the place that you're in. Here it is. I said I wasn't gonna holler today. I can't help it. Here it is. Some of us are in places where it's hard for us to get comfortable. And the reason we're uncomfortable is God is stirring us towards a different direction. He can't let us have too much success in where we're in because we'll stay there. See, that's why things ain't popping like it should. Because if you were just, everything was bouncing off the wall, you would stay in the condition you in. If everything was lined up for you the way you think it should be, you would stay in the situation you in. And God just keeps on keeping a hunger in you. He keeps on keeping a drive in you. He keeps allowing things to happen that makes you get on your toes and want more and desire more and lean into him more and press more and lift your hands more and open up your mouth more and bow more and bend more. Oh yeah, he's allowing you to go through so many different things to keep you hungry. Look at somebody and say, did I catch you at a bad time? Here it is, here it is. Here in the midst of Israel's confusion is one who is amenable to God's will, but he doesn't know it yet. And his name is Gideon. Gideon is a man who has accepted the way of life he was born in. However, there's more to him than what he realizes. He's just hiding because his daddy was hiding. And his daddy was hiding because his granddaddy was hiding. And, oh my God, and his granddaddy was hiding because his great-great-granddaddy was hiding. He's just hiding because his whole family has been hiding. And he's just following the conditions of what he was born in. He's doing what he knows to do, what he's always done, and what his father has done, which is hiding. The crazy thing about this is he's hiding and threshing wheat in a wine press. Okay. I done lost them already. Lord, help me to get these people back. Here it is. He's hiding and threshing wheat in a wine press. He's so confused about his life and what he's supposed to be doing that he doesn't realize how confusing it is to be doing the right thing in the wrong place. He's doing the right thing. His intentions are pure. He's trying to do the right thing. He's trying to create the right thing. He's trying to make the right thing happen, but he's doing the right thing in the wrong place. And I want to talk to someone who has desires, but you can't fully realize them because the environment you in won't let you be great. Some of us have great intentions, great ideas, great purposes on our lives, but the environment we in won't allow us to be great because it's less than our potential. Oh boy, here it is. Gideon is threshing wheat in a wine press. This is a problem because, watch this, the tools and the space required to thresh wheat don't fit in a wine press. The tools and equipment needed to thresh wheat don't fit in a wine press. To properly thresh wheat, you need space. You need to be put out in the open. The wine press is closed for a reason. The wine press is closed in a tighter space for the purpose of containing the juices that are created. But the threshing floor for wheat is designed, watch this, not to contain, but to release. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Oh, Jesus, help me up in here. Oh, I feel so good on that right there. Oh, Lord, have mercy. It's designed to release and not contain. Can I tell you something else and still be your friend? Some of us are frustrated Because the environment we're in is a container and not a place that allows us to have the room to operate the way we need to operate. Whoa, I felt that. It's a container. It's designed to restrict you. It's designed to hold things back from you. It's designed to keep you closed in, and you're frustrated because what you got and the anointing on your life and the tools you have are designed for the release. Somebody say, release me. Okay. Somebody told me I need to stop hollering. Ooh, Lord have mercy. And we have the right tools. We have the right ideas. We have the right intentions, but we're in the wrong place. But God is getting ready to meet you in the place where they've been trying to contain you. God is getting ready to meet you in the place where they've been trying to restrict you. Oh, God is getting ready to release you and meet you in the place and release you from the place that's been trying to restrain you. And it won't be able to frustrate you any longer, because eventually he's going to point out to you, what you're doing is good, but it don't fit here. I got more space for you. I got a bigger field for you. I got a bigger assignment for you. I got bigger purpose for you. I got bigger desires for you. I got better intentions for you. Come out of your hiding. Here it is, here it is, here it is. Watch this. The more I look at Gideon, I see why God chose him. Even though he's in the wrong place, doing the right thing, at least he's doing something. See, the reason why none of us, we can come in here, we can shout, and we can dance, and we can skip, and we can holler all we want. But if we keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result, that's the definition of insanity. Ooh, at least the man was doing something to be found. At least he had a project he was working on to be discovered. At least he had something that he was putting out there for God to find him. Some of us ain't doing nothing and expecting something different to happen. My preacher next week, I'm preaching like this my last time. Watch this. He's not just talking about what other people are doing to him and not doing anything. He's making the necessary adjustments to fix his problems. Watch this. God finds him and doesn't call him by his situation. He calls him by what he sees. God finds the man and don't call him by his situation. He calls him by what he sees. He sees a man of valor. He sees a man of purpose. He sees a man of intention. He sees a man that's hungry for something different. He sees a man that's driven. And God calls him by what he sees. And you must realize the level of skill it takes for Gideon to pull off what he was pulling off in the space he was in. Y'all ain't getting this yet. Although he was in the wrong place doing the right thing, he figured out how to work it in tight places. He figured out how to work it under restriction. He figured out how to work it and still be effective. Because when you're threshing wheat, you have to have a threshing plow. And a threshing plow is 3 to 4 feet long and maybe 2 feet wide. And you have to drag it across the wheat in a way not to damage the stalk just to get the grain out of it. He's in a tight space maneuvering something that don't fit but he's still making it work. And watch this. Can you imagine the commotion that should have been happening while he was in that tight space? Yet it wasn't happening. This man is not just a man who's hiding. He's a man of skill. He's a man of ingenuity. He's a man that's engineering a whole new way of doing something in a place that don't even fit him. So when God called Gideon, although he didn't think much of himself, there's one thing I notice about him. When you couple the fact that his family was the smallest family in their tribe, and he was the least of his family members in ability according to his own eyes, and you couple that with his ability to operate effectively in tight spaces, the reason why God called Gideon is no one would suspect him. No one will see him as a threat. No one will see him as something. They wouldn't even see him coming. Oh, that's why God selected him. Watch this. The one thing he had going for him was the fact that he was largely ignored. Therefore, if he was largely ignored, he would be underestimated. And I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that sometimes we think that us being ignored is a disadvantage, when in reality, it's the advantage you need. They won't see you coming on that project. They won't see you coming through that city. They won't see you coming. And let them ignore you. Let their ignorance and their willingness to recognize you work to your advantage. The man is largely ignored. And if he's largely ignored, then nobody's going to suspect him of being God's secret weapon. And you see, some of us discount our situation because we don't have the platform. We discount our situation because we don't have the audience. Look at that. I ain't got no audience, man. Ain't no big audience here. I ain't even tripping. Some of us discount our situation because we don't command much attention. And I'm here to tell you today that you are the person that's the mighty one that God wants to use, because God will take your lack of exposure, your lack of popularity, your lack of notoriety, your lack of this and that, and use it to his advantage. God told Gideon, watch this, go in this might of yours, and you shall save Israel. I'm tripping. I'm like, what might? What you talking about, God? What might this dude got, man? I wasn't seeing it at first. Now I understand the might that God is talking about is the ability to do great works in small spaces without being detected. It's mighty when you can do a great thing in a small situation and don't nobody recognize you, but that doesn't devalue it. See, y'all got to get out of this attitude and this mindset that just because people value it and they retweet it and they repost it and they share it, it must be something. I done seen so much garbage, so much trash. Stuff ain't got no value, nothing. Folks sharing it. And just because they share it don't mean it's anything. Some of the greater influencers, they repost. I'd be like, man, G-Baby could have came up with that thought. Get out of here. Ain't no weight on that. And we make a decision about our effectiveness by how people respond to us. But let me tell you something. People will ignore you, and it ain't got nothing to do with how effective you are at what God has seen you. God was watching Gideon pressing and threshing, my God, wheat in a wine press. He was like, oh, look at that man's ingenuity. Look at that man's determination. Look at that man's move. Look at how he's maneuvering in a tight space with a large tool like that. This man is the one I want. Boy, I'm crazy. Watch this. Here it is. I got to go. Whenever God gives you an assignment, the first place he wants you to start at is your own home. Gideon built an altar in the hiding place. God was like, Gideon, that's cool. I appreciate the worship, man. That's wonderful. But I need you to do something else. Gideon like, okay, cool, God, what you need me to do? He says, Gideon, thanks for the worship. But the first mission I have for you is I'm going to send you to tear down the altars of Baal and Asherah in your daddy's house. Hold on, God. You ain't sending me over there to help him with the barbecue. You ain't sending me over there to help him with this. You ain't sending me over there to do some home improvement. You sending me over there to do some real home improvement, which begins with worship. He says, I need you to go and tear down the wooden images of Baal and Asherah and the altars of Baal at your daddy's house. Why is this important? Because before anyone can believe your witness, you have to eliminate every stigma associated with your house. I'm going to keep shouting. Before anyone will believe that there's been a change in your life, you have to eliminate every stigma that's associated with your house. Can you imagine Gideon talking about, I'm on the battlefield for the Lord, and Baal altars at his crib? Asherah, she was a Canaanite goddess who allegedly would give you good fortune and fertility. All of this stuff going on in his house, and he told me he on the battlefield for the Lord. No, the Lord said, no, son, before I send you out, oh my God, before I can trust you with the big assignment, before I can trust you with the mighty thing you want to do, before I can trust you out in the open, before I can trust you with the exposure you think you want, I need you to clean up everything in your house. How we gonna be able to be seen as anything mighty and great, and we can't even get a handle of what's in our own house? We want to be recognized on national platforms, and we want to be guests to the talk shows, and we want to be interviewed, and we want to be on somebody's podcast, and your kid's out of control. Let me work over here. Listen, he feel me. We want to do all of this stuff, and we ain't even talking to one another. We ain't honoring God in our house. We don't worship together. We don't pray together. We don't do nothing together. But then we want to be seen. Oh, we want to get an invite. We want to be a conference speaker. Sit your behind down and get your house together. Now, I'm sorry. Folks say I'm mean. He says, listen, Gideon, I like what you're doing. I see what you're doing. You got creativity. You know how to work in small spaces. That's great. But I need you to do something at your father's house. So scripture says that because Gideon, watch this, feared his father's household and the men of the city who agreed with that idolatry, he tore down the altar of Baal and the image of Asherah at night. So by the time they woke up, the proper order of worship and arrangements was in place, and there was nothing they could do to reverse it. Do you realize that some of the best times you can get prayer is why everybody else sleep. Some of the best communication you can have with God is when the house is quiet and nobody else is around and ain't nobody trying to get you caught up in paying attention to what somebody said on social media or what some talk host talking about. You can just hone in on God, and by the time everybody wake up, the house is set. Everything is in order. Everything is in place. Can't nobody mess up the work you put in all night. Get in when at night. Look at somebody and say, did I catch you at a bad time? Watch this. Gideon had done something so marvelous for God that the entire city came out and questioned it. Gideon had done something so phenomenal, something so great, something so weighty that the entire city came out. Said, who has done this thing? Let me park here and say, watch this, that when God gets ready to reveal his assignment for your life, people are going to come from everywhere trying to figure out who you are. You ain't gonna have to worry about invitations. You ain't gonna have to worry about people reaching out. You ain't gonna have to worry about contacts, because when God gets ready to reveal who you are, and when God gets ready to reveal what he has for you, people are gonna come out of the woodwork trying to figure out who did this. How did they create that? How did they do something like this? Who has the gall? Who has the fortitude? Who has the cojones? Anthony, the only one got it to pull that off. When God gets ready to reveal who you are, people are going to start talking about how impactful you are, and you won't have to worry about another introduction, because they'll see his hand on your life and the work that he called you to do, not the thing that you called yourself to, but the thing that he called you to do will speak for you, and they'll be wondering, who are you? Yes, sir. Yes. Watch this. I got to go. Give me some music. Here it is. Once they found out it was Gideon who had done this thing, they were blown away by the work. But when they found out it was Gideon, they tried to reduce him back to where he used to be. They tried to handle him like they would have handled him before he obeyed God. But watch this. His father, one of the people he assumed would be upset about his assignment, stepped in and changed his name. Watch what the scripture says. Verse 31 says, but Joash said to all who stood against him, meaning Gideon, would you plead for Baal? Would you save him? Let the one who would plead for him be put to death by morning. If he is a god, let him plead for himself, because his altar has been torn down. Therefore, on that day, he called Gideon, watch this, Jerubbaal, saying, let Baal plead against him, because he's torn down his altar. Here it is. The name Jerubbaal means to contend with Baal. In other words, Gideon had made a new reputation for himself as one who went up against the God they feared. Therefore, if he went up against the God you fear, let the God you fear come back up against him, because you don't want them kind of problems. If he went up against the one you're afraid of, if he went up against the one you're scared of, if he went up against the one that you reverence, how you think you're going to come up against him? Oh no, let Baal handle him. If Baal is a God, let Baal deal with it. And Baal ain't no God, because there's only one true living God. Can I tell y'all something else before I get out of here? Once Gideon's father changed his name, the next thing we see in the next chapter is he starts to mount his armies, and the chapter starts with the new name. Can I tell y'all something? That if you stay in the place that God has you and you let him reveal you, that the next chapter of your life is going to start with a new name. Your name will be new. Your identity will be new. The way people see you will be new. Oh my God, I can imagine that Joash, Gideon's father, was like, man, I don't even recognize my son after this. And you want to go up against him? I don't even recognize him. Matter of fact, when he was engaging the enemies of the Lord, the kings of the Midianites and the Asherites, when he was engaging them, he asked one of them, he said, when you look at me, what do you see? And he replied, I see a king. You have the face of a king. Can you imagine coming out of a hellhole where you were once hiding and afraid to be all God called you to be, and you obey God one time, and you go from looking like a chump to a champ? You go from looking like a peasant to a royalty. There's no bad time, really. Truth is, when God's getting ready to touch your life, he might say that I catch you at a bad time, but it's still his time, and he's going to interrupt everything about your life to get done and perfected what he needs done and perfected.